Hey guys, welcome back to DCE Productions and Facebook, Instagram, so on, David Erickson Fishing. Today I'm going to be getting the sun out of your eyes, or trying to. I'm still figuring out this whole camera thing. But today I'm going to be going over jerk baits and what I do. And I'm not going over all the jerk baits I have. I have several different brands that I use for different times of the year. This is kind of your beginner's jerk bait, what I recommend the most as a beginner. They're expensive, but they catch fish all over the country, and you're not going to go wrong buying these jerk baits. And I guarantee them, they're well built. So the jerk baits I'm going over is Megabass. Megabass makes a really good jerk bait. It's good out of the box. You don't have to do anything to it to catch fish. So you've got a couple different ones. So this is a Vision 110 plus 2. So plus 2 is the size of the bill. You see how big that bill is? That's a plus 2. So that's a really good bait. So, and I'll go over colors afterwards of kind of how I decide and what I pick on colors. This is a Vision 10 plus 1. See how much smaller that bill is? That is a Vision 10 plus 1. I highly recommend this as a very first bait you're ever going to get, a Vision 110 plus 1. That's a great bait. I love that bait. And then you've got the Vision 110 silent. So they make a silent one. You're getting real finessey. I'm not going to go into that too much because this is kind of a beginner's and when to use these and when not to use these. This is the smaller one, so it's got that smaller bill. I can't remember what they called this one specifically. It's not written on there at all. So I just bought them because they looked good and then threw the pack away, and now I don't recall. But that being said, that's a great bait. That's a good color too. It's real purple on the bottom with like, it reflects so well. So like you're getting reaction strike with these baits. And then they make these. These are Megabass X Nahana. This is a 1/4 ounce. And we got another train. They're busy today. They're busy on a Sunday. They're making them work on a Sunday. I'll stop and wait till he goes. All right, the train stopped now, so we can continue on. So then there's the Vision. I can't tell if it's, I really can't, Nahana plus 1. So this is the same bait, same profile, same size. The difference is plus 2 always has the bigger bill, plus 1 always has the smaller bill. The bill size and when you fish them is all based off of depth, what you're trying to hit, and where those fish are sitting. A lot of times with LiveScope these days, you can actually see what depth they're sitting in, so you're not cycling through like baits to try to figure out what depth those fish are going to be sitting on. But so there's that. Those are the baits that I carry in my box. Different colors. I try to stay 90% of the time on a jerkbait bite pretty natural. So I'm trying, like this size, I'm trying to match a specific bait size. I'm using real flashy colors a lot of times because when you're jerking that bait, you want that flash, so it spikes those fish's attention, and they look up and they see. Let's see if I turn it this way a little bit so I don't get you guys all burn your eyes and everything. So when I'm fishing for specific size, and sometimes it doesn't matter on the size. What matters is how subtle that is. Jerkbait is a reaction bite, but also one of your more finessey techniques you're going to be using. So I use different baits for different presentations and different times when those fish are acting more finessey. So like if you throw, and then again, I'm using LiveScope to actually with these more over than like other stuff where I'm looking for structure. I'm actually gauging what the fish's mood is and seeing how they react. So if you're not getting, you throw out one of these big ones, one of these Vision 10 plus 1s or plus 2s, and those fish aren't like, they're coming up to the bait and they won't commit to it. Sometimes you need to downsize a little bit go down to a Vision 10, one of these small guys, Vision, or I'm gonna screw this up, and they're gonna be like, yeah, this kid does not know. But anyways, you're gonna go with one of these Nahanas +2s or +1s. So that's what I'm gonna do when I see those fish coming up and looking at those baits. I've got some off the wall colors too. Sometimes with a jerkbait bite, like a really good one, it's not a natural color. It's like the most off the wall colors that you're gonna be throwing. So I've got like some orange with like a greenish belly or back on it and a real orange belly, just to see if those fish will react to it. If you get on a good jerkbait, sometimes those off the wall colors are gonna be what's gonna do it for you. So now I'm going to get into rods and what I throw these baits on. I throw it on two types of rods. I throw it on a spinning rod and a casting rod. And I throw for different reasons. I've got more into throwing on a spinning rod. I feel like I can see and I can feel the presentation of that bait so much better. I can feel if I'm pulling it too much. The jerkbait, what you're doing is it's all about the action. If you stroke a bait with a big bill too hard, what'll happen is it'll foul that bait and it won't actually give your action. If you're pulling that bait at all, those fish, for whatever reason, 90% of the time, they don't react to it. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna twitch. And you're gonna, once you get the cadence down, which is really important with jerk baits, you wanna hit those fish with the right cadence, and then duplicate it. So if you're getting them on a pause that was longer than the other one, make your pause a little longer. If they're short striking it, so you're hitting it and you feel them come up and they're just thunk, but they don't like get the bait, it's probably because you need to pause it a little longer. But if they're really on it and they're hitting it, when you're stroking that bait, if you take and you hit those baits too hard, it'll foul them out. You don't want to foul them out. You want them to just take them on the side of the boat and hit them, like pop them one time, and then watch what happens, and then pop it real hard and then see what happens. It'll foul the bait pretty good. Some of your smaller ones especially are that way. That's how I figured out what amount of pressure to give each one. And the other thing is, when you pop them, make sure you give that line back right away, because what will happen if you don't give that line back right away, those baits will want to pull forward and it'll go like that, and fish don't seem to eat it like that. They like it when it darts, so it looks like a shad or a perch or a bluegill. It's actually, it's dying, it's been hurt. And so when they sit there, that's what they're kind of looking at. Again, I could get really in depth with this. I'm not gonna lie, I have a tough time like explaining what I'm thinking and how I'm putting these baits and what I'm doing. So if it seems a little muddled and jumbled, that's why, because I'm thinking about how I actually put these together and then trying to explain it to everybody so that they understand how I'm working these baits. And maybe one of these days I'll actually do a video where I got everything ready to go, and I'll work one when the bite's on, and you guys will actually be able to see what I'm doing and how, with the live scope, what I'm doing with that. I was gonna try today, but the jerkbait bite was not on. Those fish were in a negative feeding mode. It took drop shot to get them. Haha, funny thing, drop shot, what I throw all the time. But now I'm gonna go over the rods of what I use. I'm gonna start with the casting, and then the reel and gear ratio, because the gear ratio is really important. So I am throwing an Alpha Angler. I don't know if you can see that, but it's a 610 medium fast. So it's got a really fast tip. So when those fish load up on it, it doesn't want to pull those hooks out, because what'll happen is if the tip of the rod, and I'll back up a little bit so you can see it. But if that tip of that rod doesn't, you see how easy I'm pulling that? If that tip doesn't load up like that, what'll happen is it'll pull those hooks out. Because even though you got 3 trebles on most of these baits, it's gonna pull those hooks out of them, because they're not great big hooks. You can see that they're not giant hooks. So you want that rod to load up when those fish hit it, because a lot of times when they're hitting on a slack line, and if you've got it like a beefed up rod, those fish will make that one, especially smallmouth, they'll make that one head shake and that hook will come right out or bend out. They're good hooks, but if you're putting too much pressure on any fish, those hooks are gonna bend out. We just got done with a tournament, and I got like a 7.77, I believe is what it was. Don't quote me on that. But the two of the hooks, fortunate for us, we got it, but two of the hooks bent out. But if I'd put too much pressure on that fish, it probably would have sent the rest of the hooks out. I'm fishing a Quantum. So this is a Quantum, and Team KVD. I've had this reel for, I don't know, 6-7 years probably. You can see how much, and it's still strong. It's a 6-3 to 1 on here, but I like to go with a little bit faster, like a 7-1 to 1, because again, you're not reeling with this. You're using the rod to create the action of the bait. But once you see those fish, because if they're hitting on a little bit of slack line, you want to get that line back to you so you can load up in that fish. Because a lot of times when there's, you know, a little more negative or inactive, they will not eat that bait hard enough, so they'll come up and they'll swat it. Because they're mad at it, they'll swat it. And when they swat it, if you can't get that line in fast enough, they'll swat it and then they'll be gone, and you won't hook up a few. Now, if they're really eating it, a lot of times they'll eat it like this. So they'll try to eat that bait in half. Hook position, when you're catching these fish, look at where the hook is inside their mouth, because that'll tell you a lot. If you're not running live scope, it'll tell you a lot about how those fish are eating. If they're eating it and you bring one in and it's the back hook, that can indicate that you need to slow down. It also indicates that they're in a negative feeding mode or a negative mood. So slow that bait down a little bit if they're eating this back hook. Same thing with crankbait, same concept. If they're just eating the back hook and you're like, oh, they got 1 point, that typically means you're either going too fast or they're negative. And in either case, you're gonna slow down. If they're eating it from the front of the bait, typically that's what they supposed to do. They want to eat the bait frontwards so that it can't get away. You know, if you eat any fish from the tail, what's going to probably happen? Gone, and he's going to leave you there. Again, this is an Alpha Angler rod that I got for a casting rod and they actually make a jerk bait. It's called the Slasher, is what it's called. You can look it up on Alpha Angler's website. Again, I'm not sponsored by them, but I just think they're a great company. These are made on a North Fork blank, so basically the same blank a Loomis is made on. Next rod I'm going to go over, and I'm not going to get real deep into this unless somebody comments or a couple people comment. They want like an in-depth deal. So the next one I'm fishing is actually a spinning rod. I fish jerkbaits on a spinning rod. Typically not the great big ones, just because it really makes it hard to manage those baits, but like these smaller ones, I like to fish on this. This is a Falcon rod, and I'm not saying this is the jerkbait rod of choice. I've just kind of used it and it works. So this is a medium. It's a medium flex, is what they call it in this. I'm fishing. It's a 7-foot rod, so it's actually a little longer than my casting rod, which is a 610. A better one would be like a 610, 6.8, somewhere in there. Again, what you're looking for with all these rods, any jerkbait rods you're trying to fish, I'm gonna get back here again. See how much tip I got? See where that bends? But then you got that backbone to control those fish, because you still need to control those fish. You don't want it like a crankbait limber where it's bending halfway, 3/4 of the way down the rod. You want that bend, and then you want it to load up, and then you want to be able to control those fish, because if you don't control them, they're gonna own you, especially smallmouth. But that's my setup. I'm running, again, 10-pound braid, typically Sniper Sunline 7. It's typically what I run. I hope you guys enjoy. I hope it helps some people out, because I know when I was starting this, I had a really tough time knowing what to throw, what baits to buy. There's so much information out there on YouTube these days, and some of it can be extremely helpful, and some of it could send you down a rabbit hole. One of my favorite, Tactical Bassin, does some very in-depth videos. I will say with them, sometimes they're so in-depth that you can end up confused, and like, where do I start? But they have some like basic ones kind of like this that you could check out. I definitely highly recommend them. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. God bless and have a great weekend.